what should move forward in time with me and what should be let go as if it's dead wood. And the more dead wood that you let go of and burn off when you have the opportunity, the less it accretes around you.
Most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. You wake up with it, you walk around with it, eventually you'll act on it. And my self-talk was the most disgusting self-talk of all time. So the sewer of my mind, like I said, you have to go back in there and fix things. A lot of us are afraid. Like right now, 20 years ago, you wouldn't find me on this show. I was too embarrassed to tell you I stuttered, I lied, all these different things, getting beat up, getting bullied, whatever happened. But that's where the true transformation starts to happen. When you can look at people, anybody, thousands of people, one person and say, hey, this is who I am. And this is where I have to fix myself. That conversation you have, that's who I was. So that's why I lied to people to tell them a different version of the truth.
Sure.
I had to make all those lies reality. I had to make them real. I had to become a real person. So that's when I put in my mind that I'm going to go to the toughest military training on the planet. And where it has the most water, the thing I was scared of the most, I had to go back. So a lot of us run away from our fears.
Sure.
And we box ourselves in to a lifestyle of this is all we can do. Because I'm afraid of everything outside this box. So I'm comfortable inside this box. I jumped the box.
Oh, you did?
For the first time in my life. Mentally, I jumped the box and said, hey, I got to come out here and play. When I was younger, I could get away from it a little bit.
Right.
When it becomes something that steady just pecks at you all day long, no matter what you're doing, like if I was talking to you back then, I was 300 pounds. I could be talking to you in this voice at the same time, like, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? You're a loser. Where you going, man? This is what you can do your whole life. So it'd be talking to me as I'm talking to everybody. It was almost like I had two people. And I'm like, good God, just shut up. I was sick and tired of not facing the fact that I've allowed life to make me feel like a loser. And a lot of us allow life to do that, and we accept it. And a lot of us talk about how we believe in God. We believe in something higher than us. If that is truth, you won't allow yourself to feel that way.
Forest fires burn up the forest, and that can't be good. But here's what happens if you don't let forest fires burn, is that, well, forests collect a lot of dry branches, right? Because tree branches die and wood falls on the forest floor and collects. And so the amount of flammable material keeps increasing with time. And that's not so bad if it's wet, but if the amount of flammable material is increasing and it gets really dry, and then it burns, then you have a real problem. The forest fire can burn so hot that it burns the topsoil right off, in which case you don't have a forest at all anymore, you just have a desert. And lots of trees are evolved to withstand forest fires of a certain intensity, and some won't even release their seeds unless there's been a fire. And so a little bit of fire at the right time can stop everything from burning to the ground. And that's also a really useful insight, a metaphorical insight into the nature of sacrifice, right? It's also a lot easier to let go of something when you're deciding to let go of it, because you've decided yourself that you're done with that. It's a weak part of you. It needs to disappear. You do that yourself, it's much better and much easier than it is if it's taken away from you forcibly, in which case you're very much likely to fight it. The reason you remember the past isn't to make an objectively accurate record of the past. It's so that you can use the information in the past to prepare you for the future. And your mind won't leave you alone unless that has happened. So if you've encountered something that's negative and you don't know why and you don't know what to do about it if that happens again in the future, then that will stay with you. Your brain is always trying to figure out how to calibrate how anxious you should be. And one of the things it does is by sort of keeping track of your past success-failure ratio. And so to the degree that your past has been characterized by, we'll call them failures, those are situations where you do not get what you want, then your brain puts your body on constant alert. Because if everything that you've done has resulted in catastrophe, then you're somewhere insanely dangerous, and you should be like like a prey animal that's ready to dart in any direction. And so you can go back and you can find out where you have holes in the structure through which you're viewing the world. That's one way of looking at it, and you can sew those things up. Your brain is sort of keeping track across your whole life of how many places you've been where things haven't worked out compared to how many places you have been where they have worked out. And if all those places in your past where things haven't worked out, you need to map and master. And that decreases the existential load on you, but that actually decreases your psychophysiological load. Why do you remember your past? Well, you might say, well, it's in order to have an objective, record of the past. It's like it has nothing to do with that. There's only one reason you remember the past, and that's to be prepared for the future. That's why you remember the past. And so what you're supposed to do is take the past and extract out from it wisdom. And wisdom is the ability to avoid stumbling blindly into ditches. And so you think, well, here's a time in my past I stumbled blindly into this horrible ditch and terrible things happened to me. It's like, okay, you need to take that apart. You need to figure out, how was it that events conspired with your participation, voluntarily or involuntarily, so that terrible consequence emerged. You need to know why that happened and how you could react differently in that situation. And as soon as you do that, your brain will leave it alone. If you're 30, 35, or 20, and most of the time you're thinking about your past, it's like your soul is trapped back there, and you need to free it through investigation. And the metaphysical language is appropriate, because that is, in a sense, what you're doing. You're trapped in the past. It's like you got to break free of that so you can use all your resources to move ahead into the future.
I like that job. I failed at it. What can I learn from that, and what can I do next differently to make sure I don't make that mistake again? I'm gonna learn from the past, but I'm not gonna dwell on it. There's no point in dwelling on it. The only point in dwelling on it is to learn from it. And then I would take what I learned from my experiences of where I failed, and I would also take the positive things that I learned, because even that failure is a positive. Even that failure is a positive, because you realize the value of the opportunity that you had, and you blew it, and you're like, okay, I'm never gonna let that happen again. Lesson learned. I'm actually stoked I get to learn that lesson, because there's gonna be more opportunities that come up in life, and you gotta make sure that you don't disregard those opportunities when they come up. And so I would have taken those lessons learned, take that failure and turn it into something positive, and made good things happen when I figured out what my new mission and new career was gonna be.
When you leave what's not good, you wash the dust off your feet and you don't look back. And that's a very harsh lesson. It means that there's no excuses whatsoever for not getting up and getting at it. That's what it means. And it means that, it even means that when people are beset with a catastrophe, like let's say the death of their father, that they are prone to use that as an excuse for not going about the business that they should be going about. Because they can say to themselves, well, I would accept. And accept, there's always good reasons. I mean, believe me, there's always good reasons for not doing what you should. That's for sure. The reasons pile up day after day to not do what you should, especially because you're aiming at things in the future. You can put them off indefinitely, right? Because of the demands of the day. But these stories, they say a variety of things, especially in combination. They say, when you leave somewhere terrible, do not look back. There's no nostalgia. That's the letting the dead parts of yourself go. Like, there's no excuse whatsoever for not getting at what it is that you should be doing. And I think there's something else that's going on here, especially in the New Testament stories, which is even maybe worse, which is it's absolutely reprehensible to justify your inaction with a catastrophe that extracts mercy from other people, right? There's a tricky game that's going, well, of course I can't do that. Look at the terrible thing that's just happened to me. And say, yeah, okay, I understand. You're absolved of any necessity to move forward because of your current catastrophe. It's like, well, actually you're not. And it's rather rude of you to use it as an excuse. And it's certainly counterproductive.